So how's it going, my comic chat army? We're here today with Barry Lumsden, the creator of Elemental Knights, Lightning Speed, and Rona. How you doing, Barry?
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a early morning, late afternoon interview. You're in the UK, right?
Yes, Scotland in a county called Fife. You'll probably not be able to pronounce my hometown, Kirkcaldy. So that's where I live.
I think you might be my first Irishman that I've interviewed.
Oh, Scotland.
Scotland. Sorry. Yeah. So, how long have you been making comics?
The first one was out in 2018. So that was Iron Wolf issue 1. I'm now on Iron Wolf issue 7. So what I do is, with my comics, I'll do like a story arc. So a story arc usually consists of 3 or 4 single issues, and then I would do a collection. So Iron Wolf 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be the second story arc. So I leave people on a cliffhanger for number 8 when that comes out, but I won't spoil that for you.
Do you do digital or physical?
Well, it's all physical. On my website, I'd started off doing both physical and digital, but I wasn't getting. The funny thing is, I did have someone approach me before I put digital up, and they said, "Do you do digital?" I says, "Yes, I'll put it up on the website," and it didn't do really well. But the main thing is that the physical comics sell well, so I stick to that.
It'd probably be a nightmare to pay shipping.
It can be, but you just have to really adjust the prices, the postage and packaging on the website. It has been a bit of a nightmare because the prices have risen up, and I have been caught out a couple of times. But you just adjust the prices on my website. So my comics do go outside of Scotland a few times. You know, I get people from America, Mexico, China buying my comics as well.
You should talk to a printer on demand in the United States, so when people buy it here, they can print it here and ship it.
Well, yeah, I've actually got a really reliable. Got a friend of mine, Stuart Gold, who I go to for the printing. So top quality, good price. He gets that much work from me. I get what's called mates rates. So that's great. Yeah.
So are you building like a connected universe, or is all your books like standalones?
Oh, this is, well, what I've always said is what works for the Marvel Universe is that all of these characters interact. So my Sword and Sorcery Tales is Iron Wolf, Rona, the Centurion, and Chaos Dream, and these warriors, they're all in the same universe. So Iron Wolf is a Lycan king that wants to unite the world under a fair and just Senate. Rona is a teenage Valkyrie who lives in a land that's ruled by women. And what happened was, with her story, is that one of the queens died, left behind only a son, but the son cannot rule, so he's going against his own people. So that one gets people interested. The Centurion is he's like an African swordsman, a young soldier who was framed for a hostile takeover. And Chaos Dream is a brigand leader who wants to go back to society. So there's a bit of comedy in that one. So this is the brigand leader wanting to, establish himself with a quiet surrounding. I've then got more sci-fi themed stories. So the Sword and Sorcery ones, I had that aimed at the teens and up, but my sci-fi ones, they're for all ages, so the younger audiences. So the Elemental Knights, these are galactic crusaders that can channel the elements. Lightspeed is a priest that can project his body at light speed. And I've also got the upcoming Dark Machine, who is a vampire mercenary with a dark past.
I like it. I think it would be awesome to be able to go at the speed of light, you know? Like
Yeah.
if you could find a way to either get oxygen in space, I think it would be so cool to travel outside of our galaxy.
Well, I do, in my personal life, I do a lot of meditation. So this is what's inspired me to write this story. Is Lightspeed. He's dedicated himself to meditation, and his thoughts can project his body. So when he travels, he's in this protective light cocoon, so that provides him with oxygen, as you said there, on there. So that's one of it. It's actually issue 2 is just released. I've just slipped that up on the website.
That's what I'm looking at now. And you got a book called Iron Wolf. Is that yours also?
Yeah, Iron Wolf was my very first one. That was 2018, and then the collection. So I've got a collection of that out. So it was Gary Erskine. I got to do the front cover for that. So Gary's done work for Marvel and DC, and I've also got a collection for Rona as well.
Nice. And when did you start? You said 2018?
2018 was the first release, yeah.
That's awesome. You're pumping them out. What do you do? A book every 3 months?
Yeah, I would say, well, what I tell people is I average 3 a year. So yeah, every 3 or 4 months. But what's actually happening this year is I've started to take on all of the duties myself. So I used to get someone to do my inking, someone else for my colour, and someone else for my lettering. So I've actually started to do that all myself. Lightspeed and Dark Machine will be all my stuff. So, but to end the story arc, I'm still getting my collaborators to help me out. So people like Stephen Denton and Michael Philper, my artists. So what's happening is that I'm colouring both Lightspeed and Dark Machine, and these guys are doing my other stuff. And what's going to actually happen this year is I think I've actually got about 6 single issues released this year on track. So I'm keeping busy.
Yeah. And it probably cuts down on costs when you're doing everything yourself.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Do you fund this all by yourself, or do you kickstart it?
I did Kickstarter to start with. I'd ended up being one of the ones that got lost in the shuffle. But I would be able to give advice on people who wanted to start up on a Kickstarter. So if you want to do your comic, get your comic finished, and then before you go on Kickstarter, I would say spend a year to go to conventions, whether that be exhibiting or going as an attendee. Approach people who have already published their own stuff, get on board with them, fund their project when they go on Kickstarter. And then by the time you go on Kickstarter, you've already got established people who will fund your project. And also when you're on Kickstarter, before you actually put your first one up, fund at least 10 projects, aim for 10, 20. And then these people, hopefully they'll come back to you and return the favour.
How is conventions over there?
Well, there was loads of them because Britain was a real hotspot for comics. You know, we've had the Dandies, the Beanos, Eagle, 2000 AD. We had all that stuff. So comics was really big, but as a whole, I think it's probably the same in the US. That there was this whole generation that wouldn't read comics, but thankfully, thanks to a lot of these Marvel movies, the kids are starting to read comics now. Now, one of the reasons that I'd stuck to a lot of my Teen Plus sword and sorcery stories to start with is because it did tend to be people, teens and up, that would approach me at the conventions to buy comics. But thankfully, the kids are getting interested now, and I did have a comic club where I was training people, but I'm actually doing like night classes where I'm training people how to write and illustrate. But yeah, anybody that wants to get into comics, look at your conventions. But I'm unfortunately starting to see a little worrying trend from the organisers, because before the lockdown, you would have an artist alley, and the big conventions, it would be rows of, original creators. I'm not seeing that as much now, but a message to the big organisers for the conventions: you need to respect independent comic publishers, because if it wasn't for people like us, who would sit in the house, create something original, there would be no conventions. So I'm seeing less and less comic publishers, and I'm hoping that isn't one of the reasons. I would like to hope that there's still a lot of respect for the indies there.
I think when 2020 happened, Marvel and like the big two wasn't putting out as much books, and I think that's where indie comics just shined and filled that void.
Best writers are independent. Yep.
Oh yeah, independent comics. They come a long way in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Again, there is more kids reading comics, and they've watched the Marvel and the DC movies, and they've gotten into Spider-Man, Batman. Once they've, I've read that, where do I go now? We go to the independents. So I do have that. There is a lot of comic creators who I know, and a lot of them are the business. It's starting to get really bad, and I've even heard people saying that the comic industry is dead. It's not dead. The only time the comic industry dies is when the people creating this stuff, they give up and the fans stop coming. I mean, it's not as big as, say, the 80s, the 90s, going back to the 60s. So you just persevere and keep creating, and people will come.
Oh yeah, that's the old saying: "Created and they'll come," right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do you get inspiration to make your books?
Well, I mentioned meditation early on. A lot of my inspiration comes through meditation. I'm able to empty my mind. Sorry, this is getting a bit zen for you, isn't it? You empty the best way to come up with an idea is to empty your mind and let your imagination run free. So if I'm having a one-on-one with someone who I'm training to train them, to write and illustrate, sometimes I do get them to write. Just sit there, close your eyes. What are you thinking? And it just comes. So I recommend meditation to help you with like this.
All right. Since you teach night classes on how to do comics, what would you say the biggest mistake, well, the most common mistake that happens with new creators?
Really hard to say. I'm trying to think back the mistakes I maybe made. If there is one thing I would recommend to people starting afresh, is just keep practicing. When it comes to your artwork, if you can, try to illustrate something every day. Really be honest with yourself. Give yourself a few years of practice until you get to the stage that's like, my artwork's really good, I can now put this out there. Because my Iron Wolf 1 stuff, I mean, I've actually always been really critical of my own artwork, but the artwork I'm doing now, it's like I see all the improvements. So it's there could be a lot of the younger ones nowadays is they like everything done yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as that. And I'm seeing it now because I'm writing the stories, I'm doing the pencils, the inks, doing the colouring, I'm doing the lettering. So it really is a labour of love. So you've just got to be patient with it.
What Comic Cons are you going to this year?
Right, well, I've got my local ones booked in, so I always do a I like a Glasgow and an Edinburgh. I'm looking to get back over to the States. I'm absolutely dying to get back over to see you guys. I did the Miami convention, SuperCon, a few years ago. I loved it. You guys, you absolutely love your comics. I mean, the cons here are really good, but you guys there's a little added enthusiasm. So I should be going to Chicago C2E2. My name's down for a table, but I've not got there's still the payment to go through, so I've still to do that. I'm also looking at the Portland Rose City, and I'll have a smaller one in Massachusetts, and of course I put in for San Diego as well. So a little bit of advice I could give any of you guys looking for conventions is have a check on the YouTube. You could see what the attendees are like, how much attendees are there. I will touch on the Portland convention because I'm dying to get through to Portland because I was through there 10 years ago and the people are brilliant. So I looked on the YouTube, Portland convention, Rose City, and I thought, oh, it's looking really quiet because it was the bigger stalls there. As soon as you got to the Artists Alley, absolutely hoaching with people. So I said, I'm putting in for that one.
Yeah. So dead or alive, who would you like to make a comic book with?
Oh, right then. Well, I would say that my personal favourite artist is Dale Keown. So he did The Incredible Hulk back in the early 90s, and he was really good at getting the facial expressions. So when I do my artwork, I like to focus on the facial expressions, so I put a lot of that into my own work as well.
Are you reading any new, the modern day Hulk comic?
I've actually stayed away from the Marvel for a little while. I've been able to pick up on a few bits and pieces, especially with me, because I did have a hub and I was selling stuff. One recent one that I would recommend, fairly recent, Thor's God Butcher. That was a really good story. I liked that one.
What was the name of it?
The God Butcher.
Oh yeah. What did you think about the movie?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that one. Yeah, the Marvel movies to start with, they were all really good, and there's been some that's been okay and some still been good, but I've been enjoying the Thor movies. So long may it continue.
Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Well, the one last bit of advice for you guys: you want to start up your own comic publishing. The other thing I'd recommend is don't do it alone. Stick to the conventions. Get a few of you together. Link in with the other comic publishers. I would recommend if you want to go to a big convention, try getting a big small press stall, even if it's not even an artist alley. Get 3 or 4 other publishers together. Get 3 or 4 of you and get a big stall at the big conventions and just work as a team.
All right. I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me.
Thanks very much.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.